Tomoja Pachagalam Bonong Yansho. Hallelujah, Wipo, Namona to Nompanga Dampo, no Kakulon Topa, Namona Wipo, Namona to Nubaga Tayo to Sapan, Monaga Tattoo Wipo, Mitino Toko Home with the Wipo, Namona Gagama Wipo, Namoka Mongola Amala to the Wipo, Namona Tutuga when the Quiglon come to Kumis or Saka Japan. Okay, that must still like a Horu Ega Minopita, Tuna Pobo Yamakalom Maratua. Te Toto Mala, Hula or the Kadakaro Hegari. Twasalama. Pachagala pong magang yaw wado de toto mala pachia sonsano kanisa borga wasaya hola yedu ke kanitwa ma katasa bona twe set heran la het yasi ajo ke ka thinglo bati ho ke tu je ni tak balon thasa ke ino ga ma thasa bu ga ma ga hano ga ma pachia nu thojong pala chi de pe pom ka yaw te tu ega mala na mala ka daham bo ko pachia ba te hoi no ba hu bu ko no ba lang ba Umpato Pachatoya, the Eka, Sosakan Yaw, Ma, people, and a Kamui. There to me, to yet do Mino to Toya, along how we made by the Gahoje, there a Tano Gaha, a two dollar on La Tray, those you by them, I didn't like that people Gahoje. So, before we start, I want to say thanks to the elders and also to God for giving me this chance. And every day I pray to God that He give me the courage to stand in front of others instead of stand in front of many people to be able to speak of His grace, right? And many times when I think of just imagining myself in front of others, I'd be scared. But knowing that they might go to hell, and I could have at least tell them the gospel, and them not knowing it hurts me more. So me being able to stand here, I see it as God giving me the courage to stand here, God answering me, and I want to say thank you for all that, and also to glory to God. So for tonight, the topic, before we get to the topic, just by a show of hands, how many of you guys, when you just today, or in your daily life, right, made a choice or a decision, just by a show of hands? Can we all raise our hand if you made a choice? Right? It's like every day we make a choice, we make a decision, even though we don't think about it. Like when you wake up, the first choice is either to get up or you can stay in bed for a little bit longer. Or when you have breakfast, you decide what breakfast you're gonna eat. And all those choices that we make, we don't think of, right? But we just see it as a normal thing. But if we look at it from the Bible point of view, we look at it from a Christian point of view, the free will we have, the choice that we have is given to us by God, right? Because He loves us. He doesn't want us to be a robot that obeys Him all the time. But instead, He gave us the free will to choose whether we obey Him or whether we follow Him, right? So, and then the Bible, if we look at it, you can see it as a instruction for life. And one of my coworkers mentioned this, who's not even a Christian, but he told me that as I was talking to him, he said, if the Bible tells us all these things, can I see the Bible as the basic instruction before leaving Earth, right? And I never thought about it, but then what he said is kind of inspired me, I guess, in a way, right? The Bible gives us instructions for everything, from how we can be saved, and then after we're saved, how do we live as a Christian? How do we live in a way that follows God's will, right? So, and tonight, what I want to talk about is priority. Where do we put our priority at? What is our priority? What do we choose in our daily life? Because when we're choosing or when we're deciding something, we're choosing one over the other. Meaning we see that the one we choose has more value, or we prioritize that more than the other. So why is that, right? So to start off, the Bible verse that I pick out, or the reading, is Matthew chapter 6, verse 33. As it states, but seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things will be given to you. And the Bible, as we learned from Jason, right? God placed words in a certain way. Like why? Why does the but have to come first? Why do we have to seek first, right? In that passage, if we look at it, it talks about all your worries, all the earthly things that we worry about: food, clothes, shelter, comfort, all that. But in this passage, it's telling us, above all that, seek God's first. But seek God first, His kingdom and righteousness, right? Only then can we have the comfort. Only then can we really be happy. So that one, we'll get that to another one, but and another one would be Colossians chapter 3, verse 2. Set your mind on things above and not on earthly things. Just as Matthew chapter 6, our mind, our heart should not be on earthly things, but rather above. We should prioritize God above everything. When we say set your mind on things above, what do we mean, right? Think about ourselves. How could that mean? Is it just doing like going to church? Is it just praising worship, right? When we set our mind on above, or when we first put God above us, we are thinking of how we can please Him, how we can follow His will. Do we obey His command? Do we put our trust in Him? And when we say trust, or when we say faith, the things that we humans cannot control, do we leave that up to God? Do we have faith that God will help us out? Or do we just say, okay, I can't control this, I'm going to leave this, and I'm going to do what I can do, instead of going to God? Right? And there are many stories in the Bible where it talks about priority, but one that I want to look at is from Luke chapter 10, verse 38 to 42, the story of Mary and Martha, right? So in that story, in that little story, Jesus and his disciple was going to a village, and there Martha welcomes them to her house. And as they welcomes them, Mary was also there. But Mary decided to sit with Jesus, while Martha decided to be distracted, decided to do other things, right? When we look at it, it just looked like, okay, what about it? But if we look at it from like a really deeply, many of us, even I myself, I see myself as Martha. We invite Jesus into our life. We hear about Him. When we go to church, we hear about Him all the time. We take in, but do we really put Him above? Do we really prioritize Him? Or do we say, okay, at church, I'll put Him, and then as soon as I leave church, He's no longer my priority, right? Do we just set Him aside and only go to Him when we need Him? Only in times of our trouble do we go to Him, right? So, unlike Martha, where Mary, as soon as Jesus walks in, goes and sit with Jesus, prioritizing Jesus. That's what many of us should aim for, many of the youth. In our daily life, we have a lot of goal, right? We want to be successful. We want to be rich, right? We want to have like a graduate. We want to have a bunch of achievement on earth. But is that achievement more important than having a relationship with God, right? So if you look at it, nothing is wrong with having achievement. Nothing is wrong with wanting to be rich, wanting to be successful. But what's wrong is when you put money, when you put all those achievements above God. When you have those achievements, do you see it as you are the one that did this? Or do you see it as it is God that gave me this ability? And then we look at like the first book of Thessalonians chapter 5, 18. Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. So, in this sense, it's basically we could look at this as instead of going to God only when we need Him, we should also go to God. The first thing, when we achieve something, when we have joy, when we are happy, God should be the first person that we thank. All the things that we have, all the good things we have, it comes from God. As mentioned in James, all good things comes from God. The skills you have, the ability you have, even the knowledge you have, it comes from God. So if we prioritize God, we can see we are more grateful of what God does for us. And if we go back to Matthew 6, chapter 6, 33, it's the first word, first, key word, first, right? When we say first, what does that mean? Just first, right? It just comes first. You have to do this first. In order for you to do other things, in order for you to have a good relationship, you have to first seek God. If you want to have a relationship with God, you have to seek Him. And just as Jason mentioned before, right? Faith without work is dead. If we just say, okay, I'm going to seek Him, but we don't do it, we don't seek it, but we just say it in our word, are we really seeking Him? Are we really putting Him above our earthly need? And when we put God above, when we put God first, not only do we have peace in times of like when you're studying for your test, you're stressing. If you go to God, God will give you a peace of mind. If you're facing some trouble, God will give you the strength to overcome it. So, and on that note, there was this one YouTube video that I watched. It was like a pastor or like a teacher going into schools. And one of the students asked, why does God allow us to suffer? Or like, why does God give me all these fears, all this thing? And the way that the teacher answered was, when he asked God for knowledge, God gave him problems to solve so he can gain the knowledge. When he asked God for courage or strength, God gave him the obstacles so that he can overcome them, so that he can have the courage to overcome them. So what I'm trying to say is, in everything we do, if we put God first, even though we may not get the answer in a way we want it, we will still get it in a better way. As we know, God's plan is better for us than our own plan. We may want it in a certain way, but God sees the bigger picture. God has a whole plan for our life. And only by putting God first, only by prioritizing Him, can we see that God is doing all this thing, whether we're suffering or whether we're being joyful, it's for our own good. He's preparing us for something that we don't even know. And so in continuing on to like James, in James chapter 1, like verse 2 all the way to like I think 18, it talks about trials and all and temptations and all. But in that verse it says like if we are persistent, if we constantly choose God in no matter what trials we have, meaning when we face trouble, we choose God, we go to God first, we will be rewarded, as mentioned in Matthew chapter 6, 33, the ending, and all these things will be given to you. So by having faith in God, by putting God first, not only do we get what we ask for, but we get more rewards. And those things, some of the in a way that you might not know, or you might not even think of, is you might have a peace of mind. You might have comfort. You might have joy. But best of all, you will know what love is. As we see in like 1 John, I believe, that God is love. So if we put God first, all those things will come to you. God will give you all those things that you need. So, in short, from Mary, the story of Mary and Martha, and from the Bible verses, for the people that are not saved, my siblings, right? The one that are not saved yet, I encourage you guys to continue to seek God, continue to see Him for guidance, right? So that you may one day encounter Him and be safe. And for the one that are safe, the one that are already have a relationship with God, I want you to deeply think about it yourself. Do we really put God above all other things? Do we put our relationship with God above our relationship with our friends, our relationship with schools, right? Do we put, okay, I'm gonna be a soccer player, I'm gonna be rich, so, and then they're calling me, my team is calling me. In order for me to do that, I have to go skip church. Will we do that? Or will we put God first and let God handle it? So, as we learn about all this, as we talk about priority, I encourage all of us to not only think about it, but also encourage all of us to act on it. As it mentions, faith without work is dead. So let's all put our trust in God. Let's prioritize Christ above everything. And in times of need or in times of joy, let's go to God first. So atu jubela de adengla de tapikola thoya do. Ahino ga tan kino po mo anong amo pung so ru no de amo la pi ru no de no to ye pachia ne ru no de. Matthew le wa taru na thong do ma do la ye pachia pe no ka masatu tong oje masatu tong bia jo ani ahino ga po mo aji chi lan de mu yo ela pi ga do la phwa le de po ma chi ko han phwa de aji chi lan de mu ho to ye pachia de the Mary and Martha got the Wadula Twedo. Martha, the Mary, the Jesu Kriha, Mihinogana, Miinla Leka, Toslama Martha, the Motawo, Tawo Bachi, Achirigo Bachi. The anima Wadula along Wadu, Jesu Krik on a towel, Jesu Krido Kajini, Lema Kanya, a Hinoga, the Wadula Twedo, but she had a thing, do a Hino, Tankino, and no other. Cho ye bữa đấy hoa hồ bao giờ, amo đấy mo Giêsu Kitô mi anh kia là thuê được ta khi nó cần nông, để hi nó bao đông là thuê được, hết cần nông tự tin đấy, thôi ye Mary hồ đấy được ông, Giêsu Kitô hay là khao bố cái gì mà Giêsu Kitô ta khi nó ăn nông, vô số tông ye mà lòng bố ông ấy là thuê ye mà Giêsu Kitô là mà sẽ tiêu đấy, để ega ni tu abato ga de matasa eo thago no ga de matasa anima kwito bu chigo wa thoya kwito thwa da ting la thwa pachato thwa ting la thoya du pachado hino ga ta khino no go shio chi de ma to no la wa de ma ka nge wo no to